There was a family in Islamabad that moved into a house that had been vacant for years. The basement was dark, the walls so high that no sunlight ever reached inside. From the moment they entered, an unsettling presence lingered, as though unseen eyes watched them from the corners. At first, it was only a feeling, a heaviness in the air, a sense of being observed. But then, the voices started. The daughter would wake for far prayers, and just as she lowered her head in prostration, she would hear someone call her name. It was a familiar voice, her father's, or sometimes her mother's. But when she asked them later, they denied calling her. The voices repeated, night after night, always mimicking the voices of her parents, always from the darkened lounge. Her father, upon hearing of it, only told her to keep the door closed while she prayed. She obeyed, but the feeling of being watched never faded. One night, while studying for her exams, she sat in the dimly lit lounge, the rest of the house asleep. From the corner of her eye, she noticed something strange. The door to her room, which had been slightly ajar, moved. It didn't open fully, nor did it shut, just a small, deliberate movement, as though someone had nudged it. Her breath caught in her throat. Then came the sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate, moving towards the kitchen. When she finally dared to lift her head, she saw the faint glow of the fridge light turning on, the creak of its door opening. And then, with a sudden force, it slammed shut. Fear gripped her, but she found the strength to run. She threw herself into her room, pulling the blanket over her trembling body, refusing to acknowledge what she had just witnessed. She told no one, but from that night on, her mother would no longer leave her alone. The house, once merely unsettling, had revealed itself. It was no longer just a feeling. It was something real. In another town, a group of children sat outside during a power outage, playing in the dim streetlights. They had grown used to nights like these, their laughter filling the quiet night air. But then, the laughter stopped. A man approached from the far end of the street, his figure impossibly tall, his arms longer than any human should be. His face, though human-like, was warped, distorted, as if melting away. He stretched his hands toward them, reaching. Panic set in. The children ran, their screams echoing through the street. One of them, a boy, dragged his friend along, racing toward the safety of his house. As they stumbled through the door, they slammed it shut, their hearts pounding. But the terror wasn't over. Long, jagged fingernails scraped against the wooden door, leaving deep gashes. In the morning, those marks remained, carved into the wood, proof of the nightmare they had lived through. 4 weeks, strange occurrences followed. School books vanished from bags, only to reappear in impossible places. Objects moved on their own. And at night, in the dim glow of their streetlights, shadows that shouldn't exist stretched across their walls. The man had disappeared, but the fear never did. 2 sisters lay on their bed, the early morning light beginning to creep in through their window. They whispered, giggled, unaware of what was stirring behind them. One of them suddenly stiffened, her breath hitching in her throat. Her eyes widened with horror. "Look behind you," she whispered. The other turned, expecting nothing, only to see the heavy curtains lifting, rising, as though unseen hands were pulling them upwards. The fabric stood rigid in the air, moving unnaturally. And then, beyond the window, something was there. Hanging upside down. A shadowy figure with no eyes, no features, only an empty, hollow face. They screamed. Their mother rushed in, but as soon as she entered the room, the curtains fell, returning to their normal state. The figure had vanished. But its presence remained. Even years later, whenever they passed that house, a chill ran down their spines, the memory of that faceless thing haunting them long after they had left it behind. Some stories never truly end. The whispers, the shadows, the voices in the dark, they never really go away. Some people learn to ignore them. Others learn to live with them. But every now and then, in the silence of the night, When the air grows heavy and the lights flicker, the unseen ones make themselves known again.